joining. This is just a really quick live stream. I'm not really feeling my best, but there is something we should talk about around job losses. There's a lot of news at the moment about job losses in the States, specifically around in the tech sector. And obviously, we're going into a recession. So I think it's really important for us to acknowledge that with a recession comes job losses. And not, I don't just want to talk about the fact that people are losing jobs because it's never nice to be made redundant or to lose the job that you rely on for your I guess your income and your survival. But I do want to get ahead of the problem and the data that we're seeing here in the UK because this is going to translate into the UK economy through this year and through 2024 as well. So I want to share some of those numbers with you and offer maybe some suggestions to help as well. I will keep this as brief as I possibly can. And we'll get going with firstly just having a look at this article right here. So this is on CNBC, okay? So it's really, really important just to kind of try and get through the numbers here. There's a paragraph which doesn't necessarily make for great reading. It really, really doesn't. Let me see if I can find it. Where is it? I was looking at this a little bit earlier on. So here we go. So they're talking about the UK job market here, okay? So they're saying the labour market is set to start deteriorating from the first half of 2023 with the unemployment rate reaching 5.6 by mid 2024, representing an increase of around 680,000 people being unemployed. And that data is coming from KPMG. Now, if you remember, it's probably about a month ago now, we actually spoke about the forecast for the UK, and these were the numbers, right? So bearing in mind, this paragraph talks about the unemployment number reaching 5.6 by the middle of 2024. In the forecast we had a look at the top of the year, the unemployment number, when you look at a forecast for the UK, okay, so this looks at unemployment rate, inflation, interest rate, so the Bank of England base rate. We're looking at the unemployment rate to be at 5% by the end of 2023, which means that as we go into this recession and the economy starts to slow down, it is already being forecast and expected that there will be job losses. And I think you're already seeing that with, Amazon. I think they're looking to lay off about 18,000 people or something like that. And there are other bits and pieces trickling through in the news as well. Those are the numbers. That's the information that we currently have. And I think more than anything else, because there's been a lot of back and forth, certainly on TikTok, when it comes to this topic right here. And I feel as though there is a certain expectation that sometimes when we think people are at a certain level and should be okay. And I'm going to play a clip for you in a moment because I think that it really tells an important lesson that we should all take on board, especially if you are currently in a position where you are a little bit worried about, could you be made redundant? What's going to happen? If you've been in a business for a long time, then potentially you're going to get some kind of severance. So you might get 3 months, 6 months, which is going to be a nice lump of money for you to get. However, there are some fundamental principles, and I do want to play this one right here because this kind of brings into context very, very nicely some of the points that I want to make in a moment around being prepared for this stuff, okay? So
I just feel like there's no sympathy on this app. I got laid off from Amazon on Monday, and people think just because I made $400,000 a year and will be left with a 3-month severance package that I can somehow survive. And when you look at the numbers, I've got a Tesla payment. I've got a $4,000 a month lease for this 1-bedroom apartment up here in the Bay Area. And it's going to be tough to get by. And people are making fun of Amazon employees who got laid off and are going to have to deal with the stress of going from $400,000 a year down to zero a year after their severance runs out. And I don't think it's fair.
Right. So the point that I want to make with this one here is that he's in a position where ultimately he's on a very, very good wage. All right. And that's not going to be the reality for a lot of people. A lot of people who will end up being made redundant will probably be on average wages, 20,000, 30,000 a year. I mean, I don't know the actual tax brackets for the United States, but let's just say he's on 400,000, that guy, right? Let's just say he pays 50% in tax. That will leave him with 200,000. You divide that by 12, that's about $16,000 a month. It's a lot of money. Let's not beat about the bush. It is a lot of money to be on. And this is the one point that I do want to make because it's crucial. It is fundamentally crucial. The reason why you may find yourself in this kind of position, and again, he's in a very, very, very luxurious position to be on $400,000 a year. I mean, talk about Grant Cardone, you can't live on 400,000, right? The only reason why you wouldn't be able to survive after you've been on $400,000 a year, $16,000, $17,000 a month, is if you have, I guess, how can I put this nicely? You've been throwing it up in the club. Basically, you've just been spending money willy-nilly. You've got a really expensive place, you've got a really nice car, and you've not been budgeting. On $400,000 a month, you should have a very healthy emergency fund. You should have money put away. You should have a certain amount of financial security. If he's this worried, I would argue that maybe he doesn't have any financial security. Maybe he's dropped the ball. And that is really where the lesson brings in, guys. Like, through the cost of living crisis, spoken a lot about budgeting and making sure that you know what your income is, what your expenditures are. You know, it's really, really important that we get that locked down now. Certainly when it comes to things like emergency funds, the emergency fund is going to be that cushion. You know, if you do get 2-3 months severance, which is going to be a nice little buffer, what happens beyond that? If when we're moving into a recession, the job market contracts, so it may be a little bit more difficult for you to get into another job. So it's important to be proactive right now. And I guess the one thing that I would say is that if you are worried about potentially losing your job or potentially being in a position where you could get made redundant, you know, go back over that budget right now and try and think about how you can start to put some money aside to actually start to build some kind of cushion later on. And the sooner you act on this, really, the better it's going to be, really, to be honest. And it may not seem as though you're going to be able to save a lot, but a lot, well, a little is a lot more than none, if that makes any sense. So I just want to give some encouragement. There was some data that came out yesterday. I was doing Pack Lunch on Channel 4 yesterday, and this tells the story of where we are right now. Consumer borrowing. So this is overdrafts, credit cards, personal loans. At the back end of last year, topped 1.5 billion pounds. That's a 20-year high. Just get this right. 1.5 billion pounds. That's personal loans, credit cards, overdrafts, those kind of things. 1.2 billion of that, 1.5, was dedicated to credit cards specifically. Now, it's not something that I guess should be a surprise, and it definitely isn't a surprise to me, because when times are hard and you don't necessarily have an emergency fund or anything like that, it's normal to go to a credit card and overdraft, those kind of things, because that's the only port of call that you have sometimes to tide yourself over. And believe me, I know the struggles of being in debt. I've struggled with debt for 15 years, so I understand that. I guess the feeling of being in the abyss when you're struggling with credit card debt and things like that. It's not a surprise. But what I would say is that one thing that we are finding, and this is again in the data, the credit card providers are seeing a 42% increase on inquiries about new credit cards over what the numbers were in 2021. 42%. It is a massive, massive increase. And as a result of that, as people come out of the Christmas into the New Year period, people are also struggling with, well, they're coming to terms with the fact that they now have this credit card debt that they have to pay. And Step Change, which is a debt charity, is seeing a 21% increase in the number of people going to them for help. I say all of that to say this. We really have to be prudent right now. And I know that, you know, talking about budgeting is boring and it's almost like teaching people to suck eggs, but it really, really is important right now, just to avoid falling into a situation where debt is going to be a big thing. The job losses are going to come at some stage. So it's all about trying to get ahead of the problem if you feel that you're going to be at risk, and trying to make sure you have some kind of financial security. That's it, really. That's all I wanted to cover in this video. I hope that you're well, though, and I hope that you found this useful. But guys, I will catch you next week. I've been a little irregular with videos. I've got a lot going on in the background, and just prioritizing things has been a little bit difficult. And to be honest, I'm not feeling my best right now. And next week is It's pretty jam-packed, so I'm just trying to get through it. For those of you who have actually bought the book and pre-ordered the book, thank you very, very much. It is available right now to pre-order on Amazon. Funny enough, there is actually a section in the book which talks specifically about budgeting, gives really practical tips, views of how you should actually look at it, how you actually go about structuring the budget. It covers quite a lot, even it covers debt as well. So if you haven't pre-ordered that, I'll leave the link in the description down below. It will come in physical paperback, it will be an ebook, and it's also going to be an audio book as well. So thank you to everyone who has already ordered. If you do order, thank you very much. But guys, I will catch you later on.